afternoon, everyone.
Here, you got a tea.
Okay. So today we have a speaker, Professor Michael Lamport Commerce. He is from the Department of Psychiatry at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, which belongs to Harvard Medical School. And he is also the director of Dare Institute, Cambridge in Massachusetts. So his research interest is quantitative analysis of psychological reality as it develops across the lifespan. With Francis, Epstein, Richard, Edward, Alexander, he developed the model of hierarchical complexity, a mathematical psychology model. He is one of the co-founder of the Society for Quantitative Analysis of Behavior, the Society for Research in Adult Development, the European Society for Research in Adult Development, the Society for Terrorism Research, and the Development Behavior Analysis Special Interest Group in the Association for Behavior Analysis International. So he will be in Ahmedabad University for 3 days, and he will be delivering his talk and also the workshop on Wednesday. So basically he will talk about his all experience in the different aspects, and hopefully we will have a nice interaction with him every day. So Monday and Tuesday, I think it is from 4 to 6, the same room, and on Wednesday it is at 2:30, which is a workshop specially designed for the students. So welcome, Professor, to Ahmedabad University, and hope you will like our university, and hope you will...
I already like it.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
You know,
The mic.
oh yeah,
Sorry.
you have to realize that when I grew up, the valley over the hills from Hollywood were farms, and that's how this place is. This university was built where there were farms, and so I feel at home. You know, all right. So just look at the title. It's impossible to understand the title, right? Hyper Smart Stack Neural Networks. How many people know what a neural network is? Raise your hand if you know what a neural net is. Oh, good. I don't have to explain a neural net. That's a quarter of the talk. Okay, so how many people know the difference between an android and a robot? What's the difference? Anybody tell me in the audience. What's the difference between an android and a robot? Anybody?
We can
Yes.
We can say Android is more human-like, but robot can be any control system.
Controlled is the key word. Androids work on their own. They learn from the environment. They make their own decisions. They don't have programmers. Is there any AI that you know of that has androids? Any? No. They have machine learning, but it's very, very narrow. There are no animals from insects up that don't learn from their environment, broadly. So neural nets are at the level of insects. And I'm going to show you how you go beyond that. That's the purpose of the talk, okay? And you can all, I gave you my cards. I'm very unusual. I don't have to work hard. I'm very smart. And I have 9 disabilities. I have ADD. I have dyslexia. It goes on, okay? So I don't have to work hard. It comes to me very easily. So I have all the time in the world for the students and the professors. I'm on at least 5 graduates, PhD supervisions all around the world. I don't care where the student's a student. And I help all students. But you have to just tell me where you know me from, because I can only remember, I don't remember names, I remember places. Part of my disability. All right, now, I think, Patty, I have to go back to the other, how Sorry, I have
Okay,
to.
well, then you have to load
I
it.
know, you
and-
will figure it out. That's your job. I have to show you a slide. If I don't show you this slide, you will not. This is the key slide right here. The reason that AI doesn't progress is it doesn't understand stages of development. So it doesn't understand evolution. So it really doesn't understand smarts. It confuses memory with learning. You got that? Everybody understand? So I'm going to give you an example. You'll remember this example for life because I've tested this. 100% learning. At the primary stage, first grade, second grade, you learn addition and you learn multiplication, but you can't combine the two. And what SMARTS is about is combining actions from the lower stage. So you have addition in the first grade and second grade, but you can't do long multiplication. And in the third grade, what do you learn? Long multiplication. Different stage. Is there anything between addition and multiplication and distribution, long multiplication? Is there any action in between? Yes? What is it?
Multiplication is just the the sum of items.
Yeah, but that takes, you have to be at stage 12 to understand that. You have to be able to program to understand that it's iterative addition. You don't learn that until maybe even 13. That's the property of multiplication. But do you learn that property? No. You can't even understand it as a property of multiplication. Why do you think everything is binary? We see numbers and words, but they're only yes-no switches, right? But do we think in assembly language? Do we think in binary? I actually programmed computers in binary. Any of you ever programmed in binary?
They don't do that anymore.
Well, I did. My dissertation was done with relays that I programmed in binary. And I knew BASIC. So I have the whole history. Okay? But was it easy to learn binary? No. Very hard. So you get the idea that there's stages. And they are not ever represented in AI. So that's the first radical idea. You got it? Okay, this is all I need from this slide. Now I have to go back to the talk, which I don't know how to do, but we'll just live. Which is it, the far right, Patty?
I can't see them from here. You want me to come up?
I think it's this one.
No.
Near that one.
There,
Okay,
thank you.
so we did that. So this is what, you can see this talk is going to take a long, but you notice I'm already interactive. And notice I argue with you. And arguing shows tremendous respect. Do you understand? Because I'm treating you as the super professors. Do you think my colleagues are as smart as you are? No. His point was really good. And it made my point to show how high stage you had to be to understand something that is true, but not available to somebody in the third grade. Okay, so we're going to talk about formal depth. All this talk is, remember, I'm a mathematician. And that's why I work in all the behavioral sciences and particle physics and cosmology. I do everything. I'm not limited. Because it's all the same, I hate to tell you. You want to know the basic, what unifies everything? Everything is built out of something else. Right? In biology, there are proteins. What are proteins made up of? Atoms. Right? What are atoms made up of? Particles. What are particles made of? Quantum. What are quantums made of? Strings. It's endless, right? All hierarchical. All right. So now you want to ask any questions about the agenda? All right. And here, now, anybody know who Dawkins is? The English guy. No one's read Dawkins. You have. Okay, Dawkins invented the notion of memes, which is the basic of computer science. Computer science is just applied mathematics to memes. Memes are like genes, except they're information created by animals. Okay, and we're really the only animals that have memes. I mean, there are a few memes in chimps and in monkeys, but very few. We're the only ones who pass on our knowledge. What? Yes?
How do you know that only chimps have memes? Because we don't even understand some of the languages, like honeybees or ants.
Oh, we know. I've done a lot of research on what we know about ants and bees. They don't know very much. It's very interesting how problematic they are. They're all one species. I mean, they're one. They're just reproductions. They have the same genes. Every bee in the colony has exactly the same genes.
But
So you think of them as a group, but they're not. They're really an extended individual. Most of their behavior, there's a little bit of behavior that's controlled by consequences, but very little. They don't learn. They communicate, but they don't learn.
how about phenotypic knowledge transfer?
What? You gotta speak
Knowledge
up.
transfer through phenotypes.
What about them?
I mean, would that count as learning?
No.
It won't? Or
Learning means you learn from the consequences. We're gonna go into it extensively.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's tomorrow's talk.
Okay.
So, cultural evolution and genetic evolution basically follow the same laws. Selectionism. Those things that work better in the environment get selected. And so, evolution is cruel. If you're dumb compared to your other animals, there are fewer of you. And most of the learning in ants and bees is by selection of the species. There are a huge number of species of ants and of bees. How many species are there of humans? One. Even the Neanderthals couldn't make it. And we can interbreed. We were able to interbreed with Neanderthals, so it wasn't genetic isolation. So it's very cruel. It was because of culture and the ability to use language the way we do that made us wipe them out. We're weaker, smaller, more frail, right? They even had bigger brains. We gave up a lot. We don't have big faces. We can't chew. We have to cook. Whether you're a vegetarian or not, you have to cook. But you do know we did have to eat protein, whereas even chimps had to eat protein, but the gorillas did not. You know, I'm gonna wear my jacket, Patty. You're right. Where's?
It's there on the chair.
I'm shaking, and I'm not even Indian. It's cold for me here. All right, and so is it clear what we're gonna, you can see it's radical already, right? Is it radical enough? Anybody think, all right, so here's the, I don't like going through abstracts, but I think you should. See, it has to learn from the environment. That's point one. I want to get rid of all the programmers. Not true. Programming is good where you have exact information you want to process. And we will never want androids to do it. We're very bad at adding. If you ask somebody to add 200 numbers, they're going to make a mistake. And the computer will not. So there are jobs for computers and jobs for humans. And I'm going to show that, in fact, in the end, the androids will be able to do it all. Okay.
You have nothing here mentioning deep learning. Deep learning.
Deep learning, I'm going to
learn.
show you, fails. I'm going to give you the example. You want me to go to the end?
No.
It fails, and it fails because it is hierarchical, but it doesn't have many modules. It doesn't have many neural nets. You have to, how many neural nets are there in our brain for vision?
The point is deep networks can learn.
Yes, it can learn, but it can't
By
learn
itself.
broadly. It's stuck on what it's trained on, and they're not adaptable.
No, they are evolved, so they can evolve. There's something
They
called
don't transfer
meta-learning,
the
so
learning.
yeah, right now
If
you're
I
right.
train them on arithmetic, they don't understand arithmetic and its relationship to language. And we do. We know that when we construct words and we use spelling, why is it that Chinese have to spend so much time in school? Because they have to learn characters. You know, in Hindi, and in English, or in any European language, the alphabet's trivial. It's just like the numbers. You just learn them, you learn their sequence, and you learn all the information that's carried in the sequence. Deep learning cannot benefit from having learned to spell, to transferring it to learning the language. Guess what? First grade you learn both, and the transfer is back and forth. Deep learning cannot do that. You agree? She's a professor of this too. It just isn't doable. Because, why? Why isn't it doable? Because it can't integrate across sensory systems. That's number one. And it cannot abstract. It doesn't have the abstraction ability.
They do not need to. That's the point.
But I'm going to show you how to do it. It's just a little tweak on deep learning to do it. But it's not, it's major because no one understood the stages in deep learning. Deep learning is just layers. And you need to be able to solve the problem I showed you first. And deep learning can learn it with the numbers you give it, but you give them new numbers, it fails.
And that's the uniqueness of deep learning, at least the newer systems.
Yeah, right. It cannot do, if you give it a new set of numbers, it can't do it. It has to learn it all over again. It doesn't have abstraction. Abstraction only takes, you can't do algebra until stage 10. Deep learning gets to stage 3. Now, there's an article in Science that bees can learn to count. Don't believe it. It's wrong. Because we know counting doesn't happen until you later in that stage you can learn to do adding and multiplying. They're all at the same stage. And we know what stage it is. We can get it to fake doing it by recognizing each combination. That's what they teach bees. All animals that learn by consequences can do estimation. It confuses the researchers between estimation and actual Remember, computing is about the discrete world, quanta. There are no animals other than us that can deal with quanta. Chimps can do a little bit. And that's it. Not gorillas, okay? Not orangutans. It's very hard to come by. You have to get to the primary stage. So we know what the tasks take. That's what this is about. The model of hierarchical complexity. It tells you how difficult the task is and how many stacks there have to be in the neural net. And every violation is just you getting fooled by your, what's it called, Patty, when you think things are like humans and they're not?
Anthropomorphizing.
It's all anthropomorphizing. Okay? And it's a big error of people who aren't trained in the model. They all do it. The only one I ever met was Inhelder and Piaget, who understood this. And that's where I stole my theory. I just made it more mathematical in general. Okay? But they were the ones who discovered this. All right. We're going at exactly the right speed. We're understanding. And that's the speed we want to go at. Okay. And this is to your point, we want to make machine learning become artificial intelligence, and we want it to be autonomous and flexible, which is where we disagree. It has to be flexible. Not only does it have to be autonomous, but it has to be flexible. It cannot depend totally on content learning. And remember, what AI is about is memorization. And in networks, what you do is the memory is in the nodes. Okay? But it's not flexible. The nodes are the nodes. Okay. So, I don't want to go over this. The predictions from the model of hierarchical complexity are from the low 90s. They are, you know what correlation is? How many people don't know what correlation is? Anybody? You all know. You know what a correlation.
Yeah.
Everybody knows a correlation. The R's are extremely high. They're between 0.91 and 0.99. And if we clean up the assessments, they're all 0.99. It's the assessments that are faulty, not the correlation. So we know that this is as close as you get in the behavioral sciences to the truth. It's as exact as crude measurements of gravity. All right. Now I want you to see that the math is done purely in math. So a stage is the max. Okay, you see this? Pure math. Everybody, I forget what is age? Does it say that?
No.
All right, write it down. I gotta make sure this is clear. Okay. Now here's the, what grade do you have to be to understand this? When can you read a tree diagram? What class?
What
Come
year?
on. Huh?
What year?
Not you.
No, I
Let
don't.
them. What grade can you learn this tree over here? Wait, I'm going to use the pointer.
You have
This
to
the
point it
pointer?
behind you.
Which stage? What year do you learn you can read this? Come on, just guess. I don't care if you're right.
6, 7?
Huh?
6, 7?
So yeah, 6th or 7th grade.
6th or 7th grade.
Even year?
Stage
You think 6-year-olds?
9. Stage 9. When can you read this and coordinate it with this? Stage 11. Much harder to see. That's when you can do geometry, right? This is geometry, isn't it? This is a lattice. This action is defined in terms of these two actions. So long multiplication is defined in terms of addition and multiplication. And it goes down. You have to be able to assign numbers to objects from the stage below, which is pre-operational. Is that clear? So it has to be defined, it has to organize them. Remember, in long multiplication, you have to get the order right. And if you give it to a primary stage operating person, they'll get the order wrong. They'll add first and then multiply. And you see that empirically, 100% of the time. And the ordering in the tasks are non-arbitrary. We didn't make up distribution. It's a mathematical fact. It doesn't depend on people. It depends on people to do it, but it, and it was discovered by people, but it's a mathematical fact. It's not social. You don't vote in every society of how to do distribution. And it doesn't matter what your culture is or your intelligence. It is what it is. Is that clear? All right, so here are all the orders. Isn't that amazing? There's so many of them. And where do the animals run out? They run out here. That's it. No animals. This is all humans. That's why we control 40% of the life on land. We're really smart. Average stage of a human is here, between here and here. What's the average stage of a computer person with a BA? Which one do you think? It's a guess. Huh? Systematic, yes. And they're all very well defined. Systematic means you can combine two equations. So in algebra, where do the students have the trouble? In solving two equations with two unknowns, right? That's that's when they start having trouble. And we all have, well, most of us have trouble with three-dimensional integration in calculus. It's hard to picture. And when we get to modern algebra, it's combinations and permutations, the weird ones in group theory. It's always the same. It has nothing to do with the people. It has to do with the tasks. That's the point. Our major, to be a professor at a research university, how many publications do you have to get this job at this university? Come on, tell me. You're a professor. How many?
It varies. So
I don't care
starting
about the
from-
very minimum.
Starting from around 6 or so.
Yes, 6 or so. You know what the average PhD, how many articles they publish? Mode. You know, mean, mode, average. How many do you think the average PhD publishes?
I am going to guess 3.
What do you bet?
2 or 3.
What do you bet? Come on, you and the...
They are kids, come on, they don't even know.
I don't care, they're guessing. This is guessing. This is what American cultures and Indian cultures not. Huh?
4 or 5.
Huh? You said 2?
12.
12.
Somebody said-
How, come on, in the back, this woman behind the camera here. Well, how many do you think?
3.
You think, how about you, sir?
3 to 4.
How about you?
3 to 4.
You're all wrong. 0. Okay. And they get through the PhD, but they really don't learn anything.
No, but unless you publish, you don't get degree these days.
Not
You must be all
everywhere.
the statistics.
I'm just telling you, in American universities, it's 0.
It's not everywhere like
And there's even a track in psychology called the PsyD. It's a whole degree called PsyD, and you don't publish. Okay, so research scientists, they're at this stage. Big research scientists who come up with new paradigms. Those are the people you know of and read about, paradigmatic. The geniuses, Einstein, Darwin, etc. Cross-paradigmatic. And the people who know that those people are all wrong. They are wrong. I mean, do you think Einstein was right, even though he invented quantum theory? He thought that you could do relativity and it wasn't quantum. That's wrong. We know it's quantum. We even know time is quantum. Right? Light is quantum. Everything's quantum. That's metacross paradigmatic. When you contest the paradigms. Got it? Oh, I'm not going to do the next one. It's too egotistical. All right. And if you know that that humans are too stupid to ever come up with the right questions, you're ultra. You know that humans are limited and always will be, and even our evolutionary descendants and even the androids will never be able to ask the right questions. And we have no idea why. And we just know we run out of smarts. And that should, I'm going to say it, even though it's controversial, that attacks all religion. It says you can be experiential, but you can't be scientific about anything. In the end, you tell stories. And the stories are wrong. They're always cartoons. this radical enough for you? Because I want to make sure it is. Okay, so I want you to know that the number of neurons in an animal, just counting the number of our neurons and knowing what tasks the animals can do, had an R of 0.87. That's all there is to smarts. 30 animals we analyzed. There are now 1,000 such counts. We haven't redone it. But it's at least in the, it'll end up being very high. But we know that rats are smarter than mice. And we know parrots are smarter than pigeons. What's different is the flexibility and the number of modules. Rat brains are about 10 times the size of mice brains. And the organization. So there are differences within stages. But mice and rats are at the same stage, and so are pigeons. Okay, but dogs and cats are higher. They understand words. They understand representations of abstractions. Even though dogs are smarter than cats, we know that. But you can't teach a dog to say a sentence, period. Never. We tried it. We spent 1.5 years trying to train sentences. They never learned which was the correct word order, ever. So we even know experimentally how to test this stuff. It's not just training and experience. I don't want to say anything more. So we know the neurons, and there's a different neuronal structure. When you look at the brain, you can see the stacks that underlie the stages. You can actually see them. And we know how to find them using fMRI and EEG. It's not a difficult problem. It just takes money. And I don't care about I'm going to leave the empirical stuff up to somebody else. I don't like writing grants. Okay. But we are going to talk about the first 4 stages. That's we're at part 3 now of the talk. And we did talk about the scientists, 12 through 15. And we'll give an example in the middle. So this we need to spend some time on. This is for you. So here is the lattice structure, and you all agree that's the lattice structure. Oh, see? I did that real well. Maybe I can reverse this. No, so far I'm failing. I'll just do it by hand. It's not that hard. All right. Okay. So on the left is the lattice. On the right are the neural nets. And they're in one-to-one correspondence. Okay? Now what stage do you have to be to come up with this? That you can put 2 different sets of structures in correspondence. This is a hard problem, isn't it? Stage 13. Notice there's nothing that looks the same other than the levels. And notice each one of these is a neural net. And we're only going to talk about these 2. But notice We could have just done 2, but we would leave out memory. But the minimum number is right here in a stacked neural net. Got it? And notice these are the inputs here. You see the inputs? And the outputs are fed to the next stack. That happens in a neural net. But what's different is look at the feedback. The feedback is not just from the first stack to the beginning, it's from the second stack to the beginning and from the third stack to the beginning and to the middle. And no neural net other than deep learning even has anything close to that. And it doesn't have the modules. It's missing the modules. You see, there's a minimum of 2. All right? And we're going to talk about the balance beam where there are weights and the distance of the weights from the fulcrum. And surely you need 2 neural nets, one to detect weight and second to pay attention to distance. And you can't combine them until the stage above. You got that? It's just like the arithmetic. Addition and multiplication can't be combined until the stage of above. Is that clear? That's what's new. And guess what? That does the whole job. Once you get to this, the rest are details. Okay, questions?
Sir, since how long we are in stage 11 or 12? Like
What age?
How long?
since how
We even have that worked out with an R of 0.95 or something. It's log to the base 2 of age. Okay? So in adulthood, contrary to what everybody thinks, you get smarter by 1 stage.
No, sir, I'm talking about
And in infancy, you
Yeah,
get
humans.
what?
sir, I'm talking about human evolution, like since like
Species.
species.
I said primary is the highest that any animal gets to.
True. I mean, what he means is that in historically speaking, how many years back did we enter the human species as such entered the stage 13 or 12? I mean,
Well, 13,
No, he
12,
was
12.
12.
12, yeah.
12, stage 12. Only 20% of the humans ever reach stage 12. And
Today.
it generally happens in the smartest people during high school. And on the average, graduate students are at that stage.
But could we say like about 5,000 years back, some people
Oh
would
no,
have
there were always
Always?
people, always.
always, even in
Yes,
Stone Age?
well, I did a study in Nepal, and the distribution of stage was the same of non-literates, never been to school.
Uh-huh.
Same distribution as in literate humans.
How would you test that?
Because I gave them the problems at every stage.
Okay.
And with training, they just looked like us.
Mm-hmm. So would you-
Education only broadens the application of stage, not its existence.
But
Isn't that what you wanted to
Yes, sir.
know?
Yes, sir.
I knew what his question was and he didn't ask it.
but would you say even
I'm much smarter than most of you.
But would you say even like the time people came out of Africa, even at that stage, people
Even
had
then,
the
yes,
ability?
yes.
Okay.
It's all genetic. That's what I showed you.
Uh-huh.
And life is terribly unfair. I did a study where we showed what income was compared to stage. The R was 0.7. It's really unfair. You don't choose your genes, and you don't choose your environment, you don't choose your culture, and then you're forced to put up with the notion of free will, which is nonsense. I can show you that's a talk I'm not giving of why free will is an illusion. Okay.
So education is not changing the stages, like then what factors are changing, like how we are getting into the next stages?
That's the end of the talk. We'll talk about that. But I mean, androids are not limited to 17, and we are. But the Chinese guy who implanted genes, he showed how many people would like to have kids who are dumber than they are? Raise your hand. All right, so we already know speciation is going to occur, right? There's not a single person who wants a dumber kid. How many people want a kid who dies young? Not a single person. And I don't care how many of these people are against genetic engineering of humans, they're wrong, because you just told me the truth. And we live in evolution. See how radical I am? I win all these arguments. I want somebody to beat me today. It doesn't happen often though, so don't get excited. I've thought about these things for a long time, and I've written them up, and and I mathematical them. It's not like, but I will challenge you. You'll ask me hard questions later. All right, so this is the hardest slide. Notice stage is the stage is n plus 2 stacks. That's the formula. Never violated. Okay? And you can't get a neural net until stage 3. And the animals we don't understand are the stage 2 animals. We don't find many. Clams. They condition, but they are immune to consequences. All right. So no one can read this slide. So here's a modular neural net, what you were talking about, layers. But this is stacked neural nets. And each one of these is a neural net. Each one of these.
Oops, it's because you're pressing the wrong button.
We know that. Each one of these is a neural net. And there are no differences between the neural nets of the different stacks. They're not special. They're just neural nets. But we know that certain neural nets, especially the very low ones, are tuned specifically. Like there are neural nets basically right at the beginning of the year, right? Where the cells are. The retina, right behind the retina, there's processing of the neural net processing of the pixels on the eye. So the neural nets, are different because of the nature of the inputs they can handle, only at the very bottom. But in the organization of the brain, they're specialized. So some things are good at movement, some things are good at intensity. Okay, so we know there's modularization, and that's another reason deep learning fails. There isn't enough integration of lower stacks, and the lower stacks can be very tuned to different kinds of input. And we treat in neural nets everything as having we think the sensors aren't playing a role when they are. So this is really very more biologically and psychologically based engineering. And this is, the champion of this is Stephen Grossberg. I know all the people who invented neural nets. I knew Jay McClellan. He, in fact, helped me with my dissertation. And Steve Grossberg, who I did a book with. So I know all the biggies. And they all like me. And they all think, oh yes, Commons knows what he's doing. But I want you to know, this is not at the level of the cell. Okay, these are all conceptual and they're all not, they're not binary. This is all very abstract. And if it weren't so abstract, it probably, I just don't care about the details, because the engineers have already shown they don't matter. Is that clear? I mean, dogs and cats have very good hearing and very good smell. But cats have much more stereotypical behavior. But so do dogs. Dogs scratch all the time, just the way we do. We never gave it up. We should have. Because it's not good for us, probably, doing all the scratching. All right. Now we did that, and I just showed it's continuous across modules, and it's discontinuous across stacks. Okay? That's the summary. And I already said this. They're hierarchically organized. They're a lattice structure. And I said about the correspondence. What page am I up to? I'm about halfway. No, a third. I can't read. What does it say, Patty? 38 at the bottom?
I don't see it at all on the screen.
Oh, that's because I suppressed the numbers. And we already, now, here's the introduction to androids. Notice, now can you see my dyslexia, no transition? So I overcame some of my dyslexia. I can write sentences and paragraphs, but I can't organize the sections of the papers. But I can recognize that I'm not doing it. So it is a jump. So we know what an android is. She already told us. You were the one. I don't need me. I just need the students to figure out what's wrong with what I do and to go beyond me. All right, but they do know it. The idea that you guys don't know this stuff, which the professors keep telling you because they mark things wrong. See, I never mark anything wrong. I mark it, I mark what's right. I have a 95% success rate in my students. They all get A's. I tell them, if you don't like the class, drop it. But I don't, they all learn. Everybody learns in my class. My wife, they all like her, but they don't all learn. But we've gotten the dropout rate, what, to 10%? About 10% drop her classes. Hardly anybody drops mine. But a lot of people go away angry. And they say, oh, you're too worried about what I'm disagreeing with you on. All right, let's see. So, see, Patty, I keep doing it. Okay, so I'm going to try this time. It's not marked with a big circle, which I would need. They have to have their own sensors. And the robots usually have 1 or 2 sensors, and that's it. So if you want to have smart computer simulations, you've got to have lots of different kinds of sensors. Because remember, the neural nets have to make their own decisions, right? So they have to have lots of things to sample. If you're paying attention to a teeter-totter, what age, you know what a teeter-totter is? You know, you 2 kids, what age do they work out without trial and error where to sit on the teeter-totter? I was thinking about this morning. Come on, you.
5 or 6.
5 or 6. They're transitional to primary. They know about weight and they know about distance. By trial and error, they learn with lots of experience. The fatter person or heavier person has to sit closer. So it's like counting. They can count at the pre-operation stage before primary, but they don't know when to stop counting. So they'll count 1, 2, 3, and then it'll run out the objects. It'll say 4, 5, 6. They'll keep going. Learning how to stop is really hard. We don't, it's a different task. But estimation is there in bees. Okay? So certain things are learned by simple neural nets. Okay. And it turns out the valued feedback, there are no neural nets that are sensitive to value. None. As far as I know. They don't turn down the amount of electricity they receive. They don't overheat them. There's no reason to learn that's independent of the programmer. Never going to get anything smart without it. You better be sensitive to your environment and care about what you're getting. If you want independence, that's absolutely necessary. And guess what? The economists believe in rationality, so they get it wrong. It's not rational. It's real. You have to care about the environment. And the processing is neural nets, not logic, and not statistics, and not mathematics. Okay. So you have to pay attention to drive. Do you know anybody in AA who's paying attention to drive? I don't know a single person. I'm the only one. Anybody know of one that care about how hungry the neural net is? How much in pain it is? Are there any sensors for this? No. I'm telling you the future. Listen, you build in pain sensors to your neural nets and you'll get a lot further and a lot richer and a lot more listened to. Why are self-driving cars a joke? Because they don't pay attention. They can't weigh the information as to how much pain the crash is going to be, especially for the pedestrian that they regularly hit. Engineers are not good at being normal people. They're engineers. When we measure their smarts on how they think about people, they're not good. That's why it's impossible to read a website.
But they made it possible for you
What?
to come. But they made it possible for you to come from US to India in, let's say, 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, and But because of the politicians like him, they don't crash. Not because of the engineers. The engineers, they lose rocket ships. Would you go up in a rocket ship? Not if you paid me $1 million. Come on, look at how many people have lost their lives going up in rocket ships. And what's worse than engineers are the people who manage them.
Michael, but his question is about, you're talking about different domains and different tasks.
Yeah,
And
of course.
Make that distinction.
But androids don't care about domains, whereas deep learning cares not only about domains, it cares about tasks. They're all task-centric. And the difference between stacked neural nets and androids, they're one-to-one, because you're going to add these things caring about how the other android feels. And people ask me, well, aren't the androids going to be evil? I said, no, they're going to have us as pets. And we care about our pets. We feed our dogs and cats. And we're nice to them. A few crazy people, but they're also, humans that like war. What can you say? We're flawed. Any comments? Is this radical enough for you? Now people say, how does engineering and politics and humanity fit together? You can see it all does. They're not separate fields. That's why I'm meta-paradigmatic. And there are no solutions to anything. So we don't even know how to be fair. They're competing values and fairness. All right, now you all know about Alan Turing, right? Anybody not know about Alan Turing? He died because he was harassed because he was a homosexual. So they lost one of the great geniuses, right? The guy who saved the world, including India, from the Nazis and Japanese. Because he figured out how to break the code. But I just want you to know that the managers are the most dangerous people. They're smart and they are not subject to the kinds of forces we all are. They have too much power. And that's why Google doesn't have a hierarchy, or Amazon. And universities don't have a hierarchy. And the more hierarchical the university, the worse it does in research. All right, so he said, the way you know whether something's smart is, can you get the computer to fake being a human and not detect it? Now, I don't know any AI that's even close. It hasn't started. You can always know when you're talking to a computer. And it's so annoying to talk to computers. It's like talking to bureaucrats, right? And the worst bureaucrats, I'm going to say racist thing, and don't take it as racist, are the guys who call you up from India and read these scripts to you, trying to sell you stuff you don't want, and don't ever learn from you that you want to be taken off their call list. And I asked them, how much are you going to pay me to listen to you? And they hang up immediately. And I asked them, what is your email? And they hang up. See,
But
they
they
don't
still come
even get
back.
to the first step of a Turing test, right? They can't listen. They can only talk.
There may be programs. How do you know?
No, they're bureaucrats. The program is written for them. They don't even know how to program. They're not smart enough. Or they're too poorly paid. If they're smart, they're robots. Okay, and I already told you about this. Flexibility and stability can't be achieved in any unable to produce complex behavior. Dogs and cats are geniuses, and pigeons and rats are geniuses compared to any neural net. I mean, you know, pigeons have concepts. There are no neural nets that have concepts. If you ask a pigeon to tell you how much rewards they're getting, they can tell you, no matter whether it's water or food. They can still tell you how much. And they can, once they learn what the question is, they can switch back and forth. There's no neural net that can do that. Okay. We know what it takes to pass the Turing test. It takes high stage. You have to, how smart do you have to be to talk to a person? Even if you talk to the person, how old do you have to be to talk with a person and sound like a human? You.
4.
Yes, he's correct. 4. See, if you hadn't have answered, you wouldn't know that you knew before you knew it. And only pigeons and rats are at the stage when they can predict what they know. They get upset when you change the game. So planning begins to take place in rats and pigeons. But bees and insects can do, in the sense of they think of what they're going to do before they do it, but they can't reflect on it, whereas pigeons and rats and mice can reflect on it. Reflection is always one stage higher. All right, so, but to know you're talking to a person who understands reality, you have to be at the primary stage. That's why we send kids to school when they're in first grade, because they can tell the difference between made-up things and fantasy and what's sort of real. And that's why all the creativity seems to disappear, because they've learned that it's unacceptable to live in the fantasy world. Guess what? No, I never did. I can live in my fantasies. All right, so this is obvious, right? We know about Turing tests. All right. And I already went through this. And androids that are going to be useful to us are going to be anything from pigeons and rats on. How many stacks do you need to replace middle managers, who are the bane of our existence? The people don't understand why, in fact, we're going to pay back our loans. What stage? Well, how many stacks? We could do it stage or stacks. It's always the same, 2 different. What? How many stage? What stage? How old do you have to be? To be a middle manager?
40.
No, 12. You have to know you have to lower the price of something that's scratched. and not follow the rule of the price. You have to know that you have to stop carrying the object even though you own it. You have to throw it out in the store. You have to know that you have to invest in the future and not just worry about loss. You have to balance loss, risk, and reward. And that's combining two sets of relationships. So though they will be replaced by androids pretty quickly, they're already being replaced by multiple regression. You know, most decisions can be done with multiple regression if you have the right variables. That's why we're cutting down on the middle managers. But guess what? Programming is difficult enough. It takes stage 12. Because you're always ordering relationships. You have to get them in the right order for the program to run. You have to know which comes first and which comes second, and you have to learn a huge number of relationships to get programming to run. But at what stage does it take to get a website to be readable? 13. You have to be able to take the perspective of everybody. And that's where you guys failed. You care whether the program crashes, but you don't care whether anybody wants to use it. And guess who solved that problem? Google. And Facebook, right? And that's why they're all billionaires and you're not. Because you have not learned, you must pay attention to what people can read and what they get out of it. See, I told you I'm a mean guy. I already said all this, I'm not going to say it again. So feedback is critical. And why don't people from an AI background care about feedback? Because they're not interested in flexibility. You have to be interested in flexibility.
All neural networks require feedback to work.
Yes, one loop. But I'm telling you, for stage 12, you need 10 loops, minimum.
Sir, reinforcement learning.
What?
Reinforcement learning.
I can't hear him, Patty. You translate.
Sir, in reinforcement learning, there are many feedback loops.
In reinforcement learning.
Yes.
Yeah.
In reinforcement learning, there are more networks, but they're not to each layer. It all has to be to every level in the network. It has to be like in deep learning, but you have to have more modules because you have to integrate more sensory inputs and you have to be able to address more problems. And that's what's wrong with learning. They all fail. I'm going to show you if I get there. I programmed enough time, I think. Now, androids are going to beat humans. And I only discovered this a year and a half ago. Because I knew about genetic engineering, and my son and I wrote an article, and we knew that there were going to be superions. I know you have to go. It's okay, don't worry about it. So, superions are going to happen even with androids. Androids are going to take much longer to develop. I don't know how many years, but they're going to take a long time. It's not going to be in the next 20 years. But the concepts of androids, we already can do pigeons. Okay, we can do pigeons and rats. And once you can do that, you can just do the other stacks. You just keep doing it. But there are always, I told you that the same problems that exist in AI, which is stability, always stability. What happens to us, what happens to human beings when they get hung up and they can't go on a problem? Do you know how we handle
They just stop doing it for some time.
it?
Then
And we go to sleep, and our brains reorganize things and we don't know how. Okay? And stacked neural nets doesn't have that solution yet. But we know it has to be done. We have to go to sleep. We have to have something like sleep that allows for consolidation and things. We don't know how that works. Because if you keep working on the problem, as you point out, you just hang. And that's why it takes humans forever to do anything. And androids, we'll be able to reset them and consolidate. We'll solve that problem. It's a solvable problem. I don't know how to solve it. That's for you guys. So, but once you train up an android, you just dump all the node values into another one. Takes a second or two, right? Whereas humans, to get them through college takes a long time. That's the big difference, is the learning time. The stacks are built in, but the learning is fast in androids and not in superions. And that's why androids are going to win. Isn't that terrible? We don't have a choice. It's just the way it is. What can we do? I mean, you guys, in AI, you really ruled the world. All right. All right. And so we know how to do it. We first analyze the sequence of the task. We get a lot of sensors. We know we need, and we know, I don't think this slide is, here's a stack, a single one, another picture of a stack neural net. I don't think you need this. Here's another one.
They're not readable anyway.
All right, don't worry about them. And I already said this. They'll be able to develop faster and they'll be able to be smarter. They won't be stuck at 17. Because they'll be able to design a smarter one because they'll be smarter on the average. I mean, it's no problem to get up to the highest stage. We already know what the tasks are. People ask me, what does stage 17 consist of? I said if I were there, I'd be able to design stage 18. Reflection is one stage higher. But I know what's all wrong with 16, so I know my students say I'm at 17, because I already said what's wrong with 16. But, an Android won't have that limitation. And we use teams. We're so limited, teams do better than individuals. And guess what? That'll still be true of androids. They'll have different training. So combining the training will be still like bees. Okay. And we already went through this. I just went through it. Now I'm going to argue why they're going to be pro-social. One of the big problems that people don't understand about androids androids is they're subject to the same evolutionary constraints that other animals are. If they fight each other and they wipe out other animals, they'll go the... Who is more violent, chimps or humans? Huh? No. The rate of killing in humans is negligible. The most we've ever killed is, in a year, is 5 million. How many wars are there between chimp groups? All the time. Chimps are always killing each other. The groups, right? They go to war. You read these articles in popular science magazines, don't you? They're always fighting. One of the males trying to take over will kill the kids of another male. They're mean. And they're violent. And they're vicious. They kill people. Didn't you read about the chimp that tore up this woman who took care of him for 20 years? We don't have people like that. You know, once in a while you have some sort of killer, but it's rare. Which is higher, the rate of suicide or the high rate of murder? Huh? Murder? Boy, are you wrong. It's 3 to 1 suicide, or 4 to 1. And who's more likely to, what group of people have the highest rate of murder? People from the military who've been trained to kill and to be desensitized to doing it. How many people are in the military in India? 500,000?
21 lakhs.
Huh?
1.3 million.
1.4 million?
Yes.
And India is 4 times the size of the United States. We have 2 million. We're much... Who starts the most wars or fights the most wars in the world? The Americans. We're all over the place killing people. The only people, you know, if it weren't for the Gurkhas, India would be Japanese. I mean, basically, you know, how many Muslims are there in India?
About 15% of the entire population.
Yeah, but what's the number?
18 million or so?
Yeah. Yeah, how many? Is India the first or second largest Muslim country? Third.
Second largest.
Second largest. So what's all the fighting about? I think Egypt's the largest Muslim.
Indonesia.
Indonesia, and then Egypt. And then maybe you're tied with Egypt. But I mean, you figure all these explanations, these political, they don't make any sense. Come on, there's no reason. We can, if you want to control murders, you put FDI, what do they call it? FDIA tags, you know, the RFID tags on people, you know where they are. You could control them. You don't have to lock them in jail and kill them. You just have to know where they are and what they're doing. You can put body cameras on. You can sew them in if you really want to be a bastard. So, androids have to be pro-social. They have to be diverse, and they have to be pro-social. Because the same laws that govern us wiping the chimps out will govern the androids. Got it? The laws of evolution are not different. The social canines, lions, are doing a hell of a lot better than the tigers, right? Same laws.
This pro-social argument only holds among androids.
What?
your argument only holds among androids, not between androids and humans.
Oh, I said we're gonna be pets.
Yeah, okay. Then
We're not gonna have the power we have now, but they're not gonna kill us. They're not gonna kill us for the same reasons that we want diversity. And you don't think human beings make good pets? I think they make great pets. They're loving, they scratch your back when you they're gonna be great pets. I mean, think about all the nice things about humans. And androids will know those too. There's no reason to kill humans. We're cheap. By the time we get to androids that are smart enough to replace us, the cost of what's the cost of energy going to be in the future? 40 years from now. Nothing, right? Solar energy is going to take over. Are we going to still have oil wells? No. Solar gets converted into hydrogen. We can store hydrogen. We know how to make fuel cells. There's no reason to have all this crap about energy and food. It's trivial to grow food, right? With energy and free water, nothing. So the cost of humans is going to be trivial. And we're not going to have this education issue. I told you, 95% of my students learn. With computer-run education, pretty much everybody will learn. You won't even need teachers. That was the talk they didn't want me to give here. But you remember, am I being respectful of computer scientists? Of course, because I tell you the answer is computer-run education. And you're gonna be the guys who are gonna develop androids, not me. All right. I'm not gonna talk about this. Now I'm gonna talk about the results and then I'm gonna stop. So we actually tested this. We actually have working models. Anybody here an entrepreneur? No. Anybody know any entrepreneurs? No. Huh, you do. You should talk to them about it. There's $1 trillion amount of work for doing stacked neural nets, $1 trillion. Okay? And I'm always open to discussions with anybody. I told you, I have a lot of time. I came here, didn't I? I'm not getting paid. The guest house costs almost nothing. They pay the cook almost nothing. All right, so what we did is we have two problems we've solved. One, we solved the pigeon problem, and we solved a problem called the balance beam. And I told you it was just a teeter-totter. And what we did is, instead of having the humans detect the weights and distances, we just gave them weights and distances. And that lowers the number of stacks necessary by 2. Okay? So it makes the problem, which is only solved at the formal stage, gets solved at the concrete stage. It makes it into long arithmetic. And so here's the simulations. And so here's the formal stage. So Patty, this is what I lost. This is not the balance beam that I have the new version of.
Okay.
But you know, you would, now I'm going to be careful this time. What you would do is at the formal stage, you'd have a bigger weight here and a smaller weight out here. And that would be formal. And then you would, at the abstract stage, you would have a bigger weight here, the same stage weight, and the same stage weight here, the same stage weight here, and the same stage weight here. Abstract stage. And the concrete stage, it would, I forget what the picture looks like. I'm just not. I just worked on this 2 days ago.
Well, that tells you the rules, so.
Yeah. I just did.
I think you're showing wrong set of slides.
What?
The slides that we have, they look pretty much what you're looking for.
I know, I'm telling you, I have newer slides. I just didn't put them on the right USB drive.
No, this is quite nice.
Yeah, you have to figure.
Huh? You have the same?
No, they have the new version.
Yeah, I sent it to you, I sent it to you guys probably. Okay, and anyway, I showed you have to pay attention to one of these. And here's the method. Can you read the method? I can't. All possible.
Configuration.
So simple problems are solved by one stack, which is what you're talking about, even with deep learning. You could teach deep learning to do part of the problem, but not all of it. You could get it to work with weight, but not with weight and distance at the same time. They couldn't coordinate the two with deep learning. You could make it by adding another set of modules and adding a stack, and then you'd get it to work it. But you have to have two modules. You have to have one for weight and one for distance. Because in even deep learning, you don't have different modules. You see what I'm saying? You have to have the diversity of inputs to have stacks. And there are neural nets that have multiple modules, but they don't have stacks. Like deep learning, you have to combine the two. Remember, one stage higher. They're close, but no cigar, as we say in English. You don't win. You don't get the cigar. All right, so, and here's what we use. And here's what we gave. And here, this is not addictive, but additive conflict problem. Okay. What is this, Patty? I can't read it. Oh. And this is what was given to one stack and two stack problems. Okay, these are the different kinds of inputs and the different experiments. In the new version, which I can send you if you want, it has this all corrected. And here's the list in numbers. And the pegs are the weights. Oh no, this is the distance, the pegs. Okay, simple problem. See, count how many pegs exist on the thing, how many pegs, that's the distance. And this is what we gave them, and they had 0. And the output from stack 1 is always 0 and 1. It either goes down, is balanced, or goes down the other way. Okay? So you can see the numbers here are wrong. Oh no, that's fall right, and this is fall left. And here's the conflict problem. And here's the conflict problem with multiplication. And And let me see. Oh, and here's the actual problems themselves.
Those are results.
Oh, and these are results. And so with, you see the first stack, these shouldn't line up, but the first stack can only be accurate on weight or distance. And you see it takes, they're 100% accuracy with a single neural net. But notice they have to be different neural nets, right? You see that? Weight's done perfectly and distance is done perfectly, and this tells you of trials to getting there. They did better for some reason on distance than on weight. It doesn't matter. All right, you see that? But you notice they're at chance with the control problem. And with the experimental problem, it depends on how many stacks there are. Stack 2, what the experiment is. And only in the true experiment do they get 100% accuracy. And you can see it's a lot of steps. You see that? And we have the time to the trial. So we actually have a simulation. And we do it. And I don't have anything else to say. But one of the things you have to build in, I should mention in Androids, is you have to build in taking care of other androids. You have to have attachment. It's one of the drives. It's all left out of AI. Any kind of caring or valuing is not in AI. It has to be to get androids. This addresses your concerns. What?
People are doing that.
What? How are they making reinforcement and punishing consequences?
There are already systems, for example, that output art.
What?
That outputs art, for example.
That's not caring.
So you
Art does not count. It's a human evaluating something coming from a machine. It is not a machine evaluating.
No, machine evaluates itself.
Yeah, but it doesn't. That's because it's programmed. It's the human making the judgment. The feedback is determined by the human. In androids, the feedback is determined by the androids, not by the people. The training outcome is independent of people.
So, sir, the feedback is kind of subjective or objective? Like.
Say it, Patty.
So, sir, like in the
No, there's nothing objective. Everything is subjective, and it's all based on evolutionary principles. Social evolution, cultural evolution, okay, and survival. So if you have an android that lasts 1 year, the androids will build ones that last longer. They're going to have the same values that humans do. But, you know, if you ask chimps like living with humans. If you give them a choice, they want to live with humans. They like humans. We take care of them better than they take care of themselves. The chimps aren't running out of the houses. They vote with their feet. That's different from locking them up in prison in a zoo. They're just not nice. I mean, most animals are not nice. You don't want to hang out with a hippo. They'll kill you. Crocodiles will kill you. But hippos and crocodiles get along pretty well because they kill each other if they don't. But that's not how we are. We take care of the hippos, and we take care of the crocodiles. We like them, but we like them at a distance. We don't live with them. And what's the one monkey we like to have around? There's only one. We don't even like the macaques that live on the temples. We don't like them. But what monkeys do we like? Spider monkeys, organ monkeys, right? The only problem is they're not toilet trained. They have to wear diapers. But we like them. We like dogs and cats. Cats are toilet trained, dogs aren't. But the idea that interfering and valuing is android-like is not at all. Evaluating art and teaching a network to prefer art that humans do is exactly what I'm telling you is not android-like, but is neural net-like. They can tell you who's a beautiful woman, so what? They can't tell you who's a beautiful, smart woman. Not both at the same time. They can tell you one, they give a test, tell you how smart you are. They can't do both. Takes 2 stacks to do both. So the problem is the problem that this woman raised. It's of independence. And androids will be independent, and we can't stop them. And we can't stop the invention of androids. Middle management's too expensive. And surely corporate presidents are too expensive, you know. And we don't want to trust Tata. They're good most of the time, but not always. Machines are going to do better than we are. Because we can build all the values in the machines. And the machines that do better will have more balance. And there'll be different machines for different activities. Yes?
How do you think that values could be built into machines? Have you thought about that?
Yes. But I'm hungry. Let me give you a typical example from evolution. Will all androids exist forever? No. The smarter ones and the better looking ones, to the androids, not to us. And the ones that don't break all the time will be selected. That's a value, being selected. So the ones that don't have that value won't exist. So it will have to be a value of the androids to want to reproduce, to pass on their genes. The genes will be in the programming and in the design of the neural nets and the stacks. So there'll be a huge preference for passing on one's genes. Huge. And will it be task specific? Of course it will be, because we know in evolution that's true. Will they be generalists? We know that is also true. We sacrifice all sorts of things to be humans. We have stinky noses. We can't smell anything. We are deaf. We can't see ultraviolet. We can't see infrared. We gave up a lot to be generalists. So there's always a trade-off. Do we know what to spend on investing versus consumption? No. It's an unsolvable problem. There are a lot of unsolvable problems. Moral development. We wrote a paper, Sonia and I. It's on the web, on the Dare Association website. If you want to read any of my papers, they're all there. And I gave you my cards, so they're all there. It turns out moral development, you can't have you can't satisfy all the values at the same time. They become inconsistent. There's a very simple example. You can't have a fair election. It's impossible. Third party kills it. And in India, there's so many parties you can't count them. Our feet don't have enough toes. So you can't have a fair election. And the idea that we could even have a fair election is absurd. So there are a lot of problems that are unsolvable, and the British have a saying, you muddle through. And neural nets are very bad at muddling. And AI is terrible. That's why the cars crash. And neural nets can't solve the problem of driving because they can't integrate inputs. You know when you're driving down the street in India, how the scooters go too close to the cars? That doesn't happen in the United States. Why? How many people get killed on their scooters? Quite a few, right?
But not enough apparently, otherwise I won't be doing this.
No?
No, I'm serious.
No, I don't agree with you. It's illegal to hit a scooter, and if you have a scooter and you crash in a car, you get arrested and you go to jail. We do what he says. We use social political rules to help people who don't have any foresight. And the same thing will happen in androids. The androids will control bad behavior. They have to. They have no choice. That's why political science is so important. It will apply in the future. It's not just a thing that we're going to grow out of. What happens when we don't have culture? We have, in civil wars, how many people die? More innocents than combatants, right? The first thing that people want is the government to stop killing. That's the first rule of government. It's to protect people. Everything else is secondary. It's true of all societies. Do you think you would want to live in Russia? I'd much prefer to live in India. It's much more civilized. They don't steal you in the middle of the night and kill you and then make up stories. It's not like Saudi Arabia, right? Where you can shoot a prominent journalist and make up a story. You can't do that in India. Even Pakistan, you can't do it. They finally admitted to killing all those people, right? I mean, it's not a perfect democracy, Pakistan, but it's a hell of a lot better than Saudi Arabia. So I'm telling you that if we can make these judgments, androids are going to make the same judgments. At least they'll maybe improve on them, but this idea that they're going to be dictatorial and mean and evil, it just doesn't wash. It doesn't match with evolution. And evolution controls everything. You know, you have to be Germany to have the same companies for 100 years that are in manufacturing. There are no manufacturing companies in the United States that have lasted more than 40 years. U.S. Steel is essentially out of business. Nothing lasts in the United States. In LA, they tear down the houses every 40 years. This university, the one across the street, if it had been more successful, this wouldn't have to exist. It was too inflexible. Listen, we live in a tough, mean world, and you guys are going to do better than the University of Gujarat. You are. You're already getting better students, aren't you?
Yeah, but they have better facilities there.
What?
They have better facilities.
They have better
Facilities.
That doesn't mean anything. It's the students that count. We know it. It's not even the professors that count. The output of universities are having guys like the president of Facebook, like the president of Google. That's what matters. You don't have to have everybody successful, but you have to have the winners.
But sir, if we can't decide if the Android is lying or not, then how can we define its performance as a human?
What?
If we can't figure out if the android is lying or not,
Oh, we can figure out why they passed. Remember, androids passed the Turing test. We could tell. Are we good at telling whether people are lying? Look at a third of the United States doesn't understand that Trump is lying 90% of the time.
but the other 2/3 do understand it.
And they still voted for him.
That's why we don't let them do anything. We don't let them pull the troops out of Syria. We don't go into Venezuela. We don't listen to Trump. I mean, the government is, remember, we're all Brits at the end, right? We're not Persians. All the Rajas left when the Brits came. They were given nice little houses to live in, and they lost all their power. We're humane, right, to the Shahs, right? But they lost all their power, and there are no rich Shahs left. So lying doesn't work with humans, not over a long term. We all know, we know. Are there any secrets left? No, there are no secrets. We all know what everybody's doing, and if we care, we put cameras on them. We know, we have cameras in the United States on everybody. You know, you go to the mall, everybody knows which part of the mall you've been in. You know, India is just it's not a catch-up country like China. It's also a leader. China has very little leadership in the world. It doesn't contribute to the world culture, whereas India does. And you know you're in competition with everybody. And India knows that. That's why Bollywood exists. We can't do Bollywood in Hollywood. We just don't have the ability. We don't have North Indian music, right? We don't have ragas. That was all stolen by rock and roll stars. So India, you know, makes contributions in the arts and mathematics, lots of fields. Writing, right? China has 3 Nobel Prizes, and you have dozens. I mean, it's recognized that India has a future, but most people are afraid of China. I'm not. I've been there too many times. They're fools. They think that planning works. And what does the new government think? They're cutting down the amount of planning and letting things be more competitive. Bangalore is a very competitive world, and so is Mumbai. Terribly competitive, right? And it's the wave of the future.
Michael, you should
What?
informally see if there are questions.
They didn't leave. Let them ask questions and discuss.
Yeah, well.
I don't
use-
care about my ride. I'm a mean guy. You have any? Come on. You didn't say anything. You said something, but you go first.
Sir, as you said that humans have ability to find out that androids are lying or not. Okay? So
I have to.
Whether someone is lying
Oh,
or
I
not.
can tell
No,
you.
wait, he's continuing.
Keep
So-
going.
we have capability that stop their smartness at any point.
They don't do what's not.
Yes.
You mean, can someone keep getting
So, sir, how
smarter?
can we make sure that they won't be any destructive to us? Like they won't create any distractions.
The androids?
Yes.
Well, remember, if you lie and you're an android, the same rules are going to apply. What do we do with people who cheat their customers? They lose business. It gets published. It goes on to Facebook. They're finished.
They're asking something different. I think what they're trying to say is how do we stop androids getting smarter than us?
We
We
can't.
can't possibly do that.
No,
It's just
no.
full-
The androids will win.
Wishful thinking, it won't happen.
It will win. They will win. But I don't hold your breath. Not in your lifetime.
So, sir, if you want.
But it'll happen. I mean, look, did Jules Verne figure out what it was going to look like in the future? Yes. Long before the future. Science fiction, I read science fiction. I always know what's going on in the future. It's obvious, but you have to be smarter. Darwin understood it, but he didn't understand that things go by jumps. Jay Gould at Harvard figured out they go by jumps. So this will happen all at once. Some guys, why talk to you guys? Because you're not controlled by Harvard. See? You can do whatever you want with your lives. No one who graduates from this university starves. You're not in the rural areas. You'll all have enough money and time to do whatever you want. You can all be inventive scientists and solve these problems. And you can figure out about lying. We already can do pretty well on lying. I'm working on how to detect psychopaths. I'm going to do better than anybody who does it. I already can predict how many crimes a person does with an R of 0.9, and I can predict how violent the crimes will be with an R of 0.99. I'm doing better than anybody. It's the same kind of reasoning. If you know what you're doing, you know what the variables are, which is the hard part. Anybody as smart as you guys can do it. They don't worry about the quality of the variables. And I just told you what the major variable is, this number of stacks. I didn't tell you what sensors to use. I mean, it doesn't matter. That's up to you. But I said the stacks explain most of the variability. So if you pay attention to stacks, you'll be able to innovate. If you don't, you'll be an ordinary engineer. But the information of the future is in stacks. It was just like, what was about Facebook that made it win? Because we're very interested in what everybody else is doing. The androids will be nosy also. And there are a lot of people who want to show off. They think they're so important, other people want to know. I don't ever change my Facebook page, but I change my publication page. But if you want to watch who I am, you know, there are 14 hours of videos of me on YouTube. It's just like our conversation now. Who controls the conversation? He does. He asks me the questions. You ask me the questions. You see, you're in control, not me. I'm just answering. I'm programmed.
So you are a psychiatrist, that's why
No, I'm not a psychiatrist, and I don't believe in drugs, psychiatric drugs. You know, heart, diabetes, you know, communicable diseases, sure, but not psychiatric drugs. They're like deep neural nets, one drug for all.
Well, see, all the authorities just left us here, so that's why.
What?
I mean,
No, they all have duties.
they have to come tell us when the ride is here.
Oh, okay. No, you can simply.
I don't care.
You can go downstairs and figure it out.
I don't care about the rides.
He want, if there are more questions.
Are you the church?
Oh no, I just want to say something because you're going.
I'm not going until tomorrow.
Sure.
I told you, you were in charge. You were here first.
Yeah, that's why I want to say, as a student of Ahmedabad University, you presented us with your unique perspective today, and we had a very diverse experience. We really enjoyed it. So thank you for that. And you're obviously a very knowledgeable person. You shared your knowledge with us, and it was very informative. It seems to me that you want to solve the P is equal to NP problem, and you're on the way to doing it with this hierarchical model or something.
Oh, the MP problem doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
But
During
I told you there's a worse problem. We don't know what the questions should be. That's worse than NP.
As for me, I got to learn from the unique perspectives of everyone in the room today. So thank you very
Oh,
much.
that's what I wanted to
Learning
hear.
every day. It's very, thank you. Thank you.
You're
all of you.
welcome.
You make me strive to be a better person just like you guys. Thank you too for giving me the chance.
Did you ever hear the story about Lenny Bruce, the comedian? Of why he didn't like people to thank him? Why the masked man didn't want to have thanks? You go watch on YouTube, Thank You Masked Man by Lenny Bruce. It's informative.